Hello, hello, Joe. It's good to see you here. A little bit earlier than usual today. We still got some time. We're just chilling over here. How's it going? It's been going good. It's been quite an intense week. Just doing a lot of stuff at the same time at the moment. So it's a lot, you know? But we'll be fine. I think once I got some time to recoup over the weekend, we should be good again. Plus the weather is nice, so that's always helping. We went out for like a walk with our dog in the sunshine, but there were some kids playing in the playground and he got really scared. So he just blasted off and we had to like run after him because, yeah, he was just such in a panic, even though it was nowhere close to him, that he just started running for home. But we could catch up with him in time, so that's good. But yeah, how you doing, Joe? Blessed little nacho, yeah. Feel that, buddy. Yeah, it's yeah, it's just a lot of small stuff is piling up at the moment. But yeah, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. I think it's also, there's always something that I have to do after work now, which is also quite intense. Multiple meetings, mentorships, staying up to date with everything, paperwork, admin, bunch of stuff. But hey, that's a part of it. Busy, but we live in? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Let's switch over to the cam anyway. Video game development is asking, hey, sorry for asking questions. It's no worries. Like, feel free to ask any questions. That's why we're here. I'm afraid that your answer is a bit broad though. So you're trying to enter the video games industry and I'm learning by myself. Any tips? Any context will do. If you already know what the different disciplines in game creation, right? Like in video game development are, that's already going to be a big help, because that will help you cater towards like what you want to do. Because there's so many things. So you have like producers, designers, artists, and I'm really simplifying things here, but you have like a whole bunch of things to look into. And from there, yeah, I think there's I think Riot Games actually has a good introduction to like, hey, if you're interested in this, we'll give you an overview of what they do. So they have some good resources on that too, like some nice little videos. So that would be good to get started. You might have to dig for them though. I think they're somewhere hidden on their website or their YouTube channel. Any update on when the portfolio review that was in Discord will be posted? Oh, I keep forgetting about that one. Okay, I'm just gonna post it in here now, because otherwise I'm gonna keep forgetting and I do not want to do that. So let me get that link for you. Where is it? I think that was a January one, right? I think so. Let's see. I'll send it to you, Joe. Or I guess I can just send it in the chat as well. Chat. So many windows. Swan is here as well. Hello. It's a mess. Where do I go? YouTube Studio. let's go to here. Let's go in here. Let's post this in the chat. Oh, finally there, Joe. So go and check out that video. Sorry for the delay on that one. It was a little bit messy on our side, as I told you as well. So yeah, sorry about that one, buddy. It works, yeah. No, it's all good. Like, don't feel like you're pestering me about it. It's something, like, it was my responsibility to put it out there, right? It's just the chaos of things. It kind of got in the way. Syed is here. I'm ready. Prepare my drink and I got my snacks. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hello, Henrik. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Hello, Sergio. Color-coded insignia. Welcome back. And Megval's here as well for a happy Wednesday. I got my drink as well. I got my drink as well, so kind of getting ready to go. So video game development was asking, so I'm a beginner and I want to be an environment artist. I bought Substance Designer and a Painter Steam license, Blender, Marmoset, and I don't know if this is enough. I mean, it is enough, but those are just tools, right? So what you need to focus on as an environment artist is the skills, right? Because you can buy all the tools. So it is enough, but it kind of depends on what you want to do. So what I would try in your situation, right? If you're just starting out, get acquainted on trying a whole bunch of stuff with smaller projects, right? Because in the second question you're asking, I am learning modeling in Blender. Should I focus on props, materials, or just environments? Try very small stuff, because at this point you don't even know what you like yet. So you need to try a whole bunch of things, and then try to figure out like which you like the most from them, and then you can kind of go into that direction. Because for example, I always wanted to make environments, and if you tell me to do an individual prop, I'm just not gonna have fun with it. I maybe have a little bit of fun with like materials, but I always want to work on the big stuff, you know? So yeah, because even in the list that you said, video game development, if you bought Substance Designer, Substance Painter, Blender, Marmoset, they all have different use cases, you know? So Substance Designer is really good for making tileable materials. Substance Painter is really good at making unique materials, right? So they have different use cases where a unique textures are really good for if you want to get into props. But if you want to do materials, for example, you are primarily going to focus on Substance Designer instead. So yeah, if you need to break it down, try small stuff. Try like 1 to 2 week projects, have fun with it, try some stuff out. It doesn't need to be for your portfolio at this point. Don't care about that. And just have fun with the things and try to figure out like what you like the most out of everything you do. That would be my main sort of my main guiding point without any context, right? If you're like an absolute beginner. Pretty busy. Glad to see you remember. Yeah, of course. First, that's not how this works, Soviet. That's not how this works. Good to see you, Connor, Giovanni. Great to all see you. These streams are very chill to watch. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Just a brief skim through. Turns out I wasn't in that one. Let me check. Let me quickly check. Let me check. So was it a different one then? Because that one was from January. February. Okay, sorry about that. It might be this one then. So here you go. Try that link, Joe. I know that I'm just sending random links to people that are just joining. Just for context, like that was one portfolio review that I did in the Discord, but never really uploaded and then kind of forgot about. So if you aren't a part of that portfolio review, all the other ones are on our YouTube channel. So don't worry about it, right? There's nothing really special. It's just different people. But yeah, Joe was in this one, so that's why I'm posting it in the chat. Hello, Jeremiah. Welcome. Zayan is asking, tell us about yourself, Tim. How did you get inspired in starting in this industry? That's a good question. I'll dive into that in a little bit. But yeah, I just wanna welcome all the new people that are joining in. If you have any questions about video game development, if you want to get started as an environment artist, any questions on those topics, feel free to ask me, and we'll try our best to help you out and answer those questions. I was in February. Yeah, I thought I sent you the one from February, but apparently I didn't. So where did I get started? I think there wasn't really a start necessarily. Like I was always just really into drawing stuff. And what I mean by like really into drawing stuff is I had a wall in my kids' room, right? Like as I was growing up, I had a wall with special paint that I could just draw on. That's how much I was into drawing. So I had a special wall, I had sketchbooks, I was always drawing, like whenever I was going somewhere, I would always draw like these little stupid details from like buses and all that kind of stuff, and imagining that they would be, I don't know, something different, like the start of a spaceship or something like that. So yeah, from that kind of drawing process, a real quick history, right? I'll do the quick and condensed version, is I was in high school. I was training up to become a car mechanic. Didn't really like that. Kind of getting by, but also like failing. But they saw that I was drawing a lot. So my parents then had a conversation with the school, I think, and then they sent me to like an art school instead, where I focused a lot on marketing, calligraphy, making your own fonts, like designing flyers, booklets, all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of got interested in becoming a concept artist. So I kind of got really into like, you know, control paint. There were like a bunch of people that were just like sharing like a really helpful knowledge on YouTube about like how to get into concept art, how to take basically my skills that I already had further, right? So you had people like Control Paint, still around. I mean, the website is still around. You can still watch like all the YouTube videos. Feng Zhu Design is a really big one as well. I still watch those videos till this day. Some really cool stuff. He has a series called Design Cinema, where he basically talks about like design and concept art and all that. And those people like basically inspired me to get into concept art. From that point, I got into uni where we kind of had to explore like a bunch of stuff, right? So it was like a bunch of random things, programming, concept art, environment art, like modeling, all that kind of stuff. From that point, I really just got interested in 3D, because the limitation that I've always felt was that it's 2D, it's a piece of paper, and it's cool, but I wanna walk around in them. I wanna really be in those worlds, right? And from that point on, I just got like freaking fascinated by environment art. So that's honestly what I focused on, like through the entirety of uni. The way that I basically completed my uni was whenever they gave me something to do, I always tried to like distort it into like an environment as best as I could. Oftentimes that wasn't possible, but I was I was trying to get my skills into that realm as much as possible. Yeah, and then from there, graduated, got an internship, and the rest is kind of history, right? So that's kind of like a really condensed version on how I got started in this career and what inspired me. Alternate universe where Tim became a mechanic and BE did not exist. Yeah, I mean, all my friends, all the people that I grew up with are either, they're all in the trades, right? Like, a couple of mechanics, a couple of people who do like woodworking, a couple of people build kitchens, like all those people, like they all went into like the trades, right? Like the manual labor kind of side. That's also my dad, right? Like my dad comes from a lineage of like mechanics. So my dad is a mechanic. His dad before that was also a mechanic. So yeah, everyone around me was basically a mechanic. So yeah. Let's have a look. There were some questions in the chat as well. There's some relevant one here from Mikval. So what's your favorite type of environment to make? Fantasy, sci-fi, realistic, etc. I don't really have a favorite type, honestly. I mean, I did spend 3 years making a medieval scene, but then before that I spent a year making something like sci-fi. I don't know. I kind of like exploring new worlds, right? I kind of like exploring new things. That's what I'm really keen into. What for me is really interesting is the journey, right? So I don't really like distant sci-fi, for example, but I like semi-realistic sci-fi that we could use like current day tech to make it like sci-fi-ish. But yeah, I don't really have a preference. I just like something that is not the world that we live in, you know, in terms of like the inspirations or the fantasy that it's set in, right? So, for example, this is also why I'm not keen to play like a GTA, because to me that just feels like, oh, I'm being transported into a world that feels very, very related to the world that we are in. And if you can give me the choice between going into like a fantasy realm or just playing GTA, I will pick whatever is out there before I'll play GTA, for example, right? Do I have to become a member to get a portfolio review? Yeah, honestly, at this point you do, I think, because the queue is so long that it's gonna take some time. And it will be some time before I can execute like anything new, honestly. I do have some ideas what I want to do with the portfolio reviews in the future, but I don't have time to think about that currently. So that would be the best way. He's been keeping secret reviews from us. No, Connor, no, please. It's not true. Mohammed is asking, I'm new to environment art and I'm not sure where to start. Is there a solid course or roadmap that covers everything I need to learn? I have a strong foundation as a senior graphic designer. So this is basically the question that was asked before, right? You kind of have to explore, like, first of all, what is out there, even in environment art, right? Because you can focus on props, you can focus on the big stuff, you can focus on foliage, you can focus on rocks, like whatever you kind of want to do. Kind of think about like what you want to get into. And the best way to explore that is by just trying it, right? So that's what I would start. If you don't know where to go, just do something and just have fun with it. Explore the medium a little bit before you kind of lock yourself into one thing. If you're talking about like a roadmap or a solid course, we are building one at the moment, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And as for a course that I could recommend that isn't already specific, I actually don't know. Because most of the courses that I do know, they're already like really specific to a certain type of artist. And we're going to take a different approach to when it comes to our course as well. But yeah. Because we know that a lot of people are in the same position, that it's kind of overwhelming. The video games industry like changes a lot as well. So there's a lot of unknowns as always. Jose is asking, I want to know if I just make environments for my portfolio and combine everything like props, materials, vehicles, and games assets, or should I make it separate in different categories? If you are making a portfolio that has props, materials, vehicles, and game assets all in once, you're spreading yourself too thin. And if you want to get into games, you need to focus on one of those things. So you can do either props, either materials, either vehicles, or environments, right? So a way that you can kind of shortcut that with an environment, for example, because that usually has like a lot of those components, right? Is that you make the most important thing in that environment and then try to use shortcuts wherever possible. So let's say I'm making a medieval scene that you can kind of see in the background, right? Those trees I don't make because I have no interest in making foliage, and it's also not part of the focus, right? So I spend my time working on other things instead. And then what I would do is kind of just look at your skill set and then see how you can develop that over time by kind of looking at, okay, I'm really good at modeling, for example, but I'm really bad at like texturing. Okay, so I'll do a project that focuses on texturing. Cool. Then I bring that skill up. Okay, cool. What is the next skill? You know? But you should look at your skill set as a T-shaped personality so that you have one skill set or one preference that you're really, really good in, and then go from there. Because I want to become an environment artist, but even within environment art, there are so many different things, because becoming like a true environment artist for AAA, where you get to do everything, does not exist. It does not. So usually what companies will do is they'll say like, hey, we have an opening for an environment artist. But usually what that means these days, by a big amount, is that you will be doing set dressing and storytelling. So you will just be making like the world itself, right? Maybe there's some terrain sculpting, all that kind of stuff in there. But yeah, that usually means that you won't be making a lot of stuff yourself. So a good way to distill this is go and look at the actual applications that companies have, and then try to distill what is in there, right? So if you go and look at an application, it usually says, oh, we want you to be really good with, I don't know, Substance Painter, whatever, right? So from those tools, if you know what they're used for, you can kind of distill what you're going to be doing in your day-to-day job. Because yeah, even environment art by itself, right, has a load of different categories. Because for example, I work with a bunch of environment artists on my team, but then you still have environment artists that purely do foliage, and you have environment artists that purely do rocks, and you have environment artists that purely do set dressing, and another one is making props. You know, they're all like specific, but they kind of make it easy by just like combining them on like one banner, really. For smaller companies, there are some more generic environment artist positions. Yeah, sure. But like if you, I don't know the numbers, right? But when I kind of have to generalize, and most people, they want to get into the bigger companies, right? So that's also what my experience tends to be about as well. You kind of have to try everything. Let me see. What were you saying before? Actually, yeah, I used to sculpt a model for like a year or something like that. Find it nice to take part of a challenge and learn throughout this. Yeah. Yeah, like challenges are really good because you have to learn a lot in like a short amount of time, right? So like the challenge that we are going to be opening up for soon is... McFell is asking, when is the challenge starting? So let me grab the dates. So the signups, we're currently moving towards like opening the signups, right? So the opening of the signups will happen on the 21st. So that is, if I'm not mistaken, this Saturday. Let me double check. This Friday. This Friday we will open up the signups. And then after that, let me quickly verify here. And then you will have 5 days to sign up. So the signups will close on March the 26th. And then we have the kickoff on the 29th. So we will start building the teams and we'll plan the kickoff and all that kind of stuff. That is going to happen on the 29th. So that's also when production begins. So the 29th, that's when the next challenge like properly kicks off. If I live in Portugal, if the recruiter finds out I don't live, let's say, in the UK or the US where the game studios are, there are game studios in Portugal. Like, I have a couple of friends who are moving to Portugal to work for game studios. But I digress. Are they still accept? Are they still willing to accept or hire me if it's or is it a lost cause? No, but like the way to look at it is you can still apply to like any other company in any other country, right? But that also means that usually the talent pool is going to be bigger, right? Because you have a big advantage. Let's say I don't know where you live. I don't really need to know, right? For like privacy reasons. But let's say you live in a town that might have a game studio, right? What is a big benefit is that they can just literally be like, hey, we're going to hire you because we don't have to pay you like relocation fees, right? Which is usually like a budget that they have to like transport people from other places. And you can start like next Monday, right? Which is awesome if they need someone. Whereas like with someone else, they might have to think about a visa. They might have to think about the relocation, maybe all that other stuff, right? So yeah. It's not a lost cause. Just apply anywhere. So, I mean, I'm from Belgium originally, right? So my first job was in the UK and they also hired me, right? So don't let that stop you from applying somewhere else. Just go crazy. And you are integrated, language, friends, family, and so on. That's true. That's true, Henrik. That is a big bonus as well, because they know that you're less likely to move somewhere else, right? If you already have roots in that location. And that's a big bonus for a company, right? Tim, have you considered doing ArchViz? From my perspective, it's much easier because it's all about renders. Where I'm from, it's all ArchViz. So learning environment art is almost like a hobby. Not considering working for an outsourcing company. No, I don't really care about ArchViz for that exact reason that you said, right? It's just a render. So the pipeline is going to be different. The constraints are going to be different. That doesn't mean that there's not good jobs and that it's not interesting. It's just not what I want to do. I wonder what the theme is. I wish I had time to join. It's been a while since I've done some proper environment art. Well, we had a public vote, so everyone had their vote on like what the theme was, and I think we came out with a pretty good one. But we're gonna announce it during the kickoff. So yeah, even if you're not participating, hop into the Discord. Well, if you're a member, like hop into the Discord into the call like that we have. When was it again? I need to cheat. The 29th of March. That's when we'll have it. Max Miller is asking, are there a certain amount of experience recommended for the team challenges? I'm guessing teams are matched up based on skill set and experience. So to be transparent, the way that we do it is we look at raw skill set first. So we do a portfolio review based on it. But the bar is probably not as high as a lot of people are expecting it to be. Because the way that we look at the team challenges is that we want to give juniors or people that are trying to get into the industry, if they are close to being good enough, we want to give them the opportunity to prove themselves in a team setting, right? And add like additional skills onto their resume as well. So that is usually the first round that we do. And then we look at the time zones so that we already know, where people are situated, if we can make the amount of teams that we can, and that's usually where we go from. So it's usually skill set, time zone, and then additional experience and all that kind of stuff, because we also try to balance the teams out in a way where we have, ideally, this is an ideal scenario, and we hope that this happens every time, that we have a person with some sort of industry experience in a team with a bunch of other people that might not have industry experience, so that there's some sort of like group mentoring kind of going on. I will say though that this time around, what we're doing differently than last time is each team has a dedicated mentor or guide or whatever you want to call it, let's call it a mentor for simplicity's sake, that will be guiding you through the entire development of that team challenge as well. So that is something new that we're going to try, because last time we kind of had it, but it was randomized and it was a bit chaotic. So now we're making it more structured so that you have a dedicated person that's going to help you. Need to have at least 3 AAA games shipped. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Is it still going to be a stylized team? We always have a separation between the two. So we have realistic and stylized. So we have like a split between the two. I think last time we had, let's see, because they're all on the wall as well. I think we had 3 stylized teams and then 12 realistic teams. Let's see, Jonathan, is it required to be a member and pay for the membership in order to participate in any part of the challenge? Yes, it is. The reason for that being is because we pay for source control. And yeah, we're still at a loss. Let's call it that. So for us, like, we put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's also, we're still running at a loss even if you become a member, right? So yeah. Plus you get a whole bunch of stuff. And you get a PDF, exactly. How many hours a week is required? Minimum 10. That's like the bare minimum. I will say that the average per team is probably going to be, yeah, more than that. Just wanted to make sure I got it right. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, Megfal is bringing out the true reason why people are there. So the pets Discord channel. Freaking hell. We got, whenever someone new joins now, they basically get politely but very immediately asked if they have a pet to drop images in that channel. It's so funny. Let's see, there was another question here, and then we'll get into some feedback as well, because I do want to get into some feedbacking. So Blazer Gamer is asking, any tips for a prop artist? I don't know if it's still worth being a prop artist. I don't know if game studios want someone with a lot of skills or someone who focuses only in one specific area, like making props or game assets. No, so the way that the current industry is kind of going, or has been going for a long time now, is that if you want to make props, it is just highly likely that you'll end up in an outsourcing studio. And that always has like a bad connotation, but trust me, it is not. I think there's actually big benefits of working in like an outsourced studio compared to an in-house studio, because you get way more experience, first of all, and you get to try like different games and different, different productions, not necessarily get to try the games, but you get to try like different workflows, different productions, and you become way better prepared for the future. So you're just injecting yourself with like a whole bunch of skills compared to a single development. If let's say you're working in-house somewhere as a prop artist, you're going to be working on a singular workflow for, if it's a big game, 5 years now, right? So that's a lot of time to just work with like a singular like workflow. In an outsourcing studio, when you get dropped by a client, they will find you another one. Most of the time, depends on the contract. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm new to the video games industry. What is an outsourcing studio? Sorry for the dumb question. Nope, there's no dumb questions. So an outsourcing studio is basically, so the way that games are structured now is that you have the main studio who is working on the game itself, right? So they are the people who came up with the idea. They pitched it to a publisher in most cases. So let me give you an example, right? Let's make it simple. So you have Halo Studios, right? So they made Halo Infinite. What they did is they had this idea for Halo Infinite, and then they had a collaboration with Microsoft, right? Because they are the publisher above them. But then to complete the work that they have to do on such a big game, they will reach out to other companies who are purely in the business of delivering assets for your game. So those are what we call like outsourced studios, because you basically give them a task of like, hey, we need all these assets made, and they just hand it off, and then they get the assets back. And that's how they can make these big productions like work, because there's so many other projects and studios, sorry, not projects, only studios working with them. There is also somewhat of a studio in between as well, called the co-development studio, where they will not only produce assets, but they will also produce like a part of your game. So let's say, oh, we're building an open world game, and we have this separate section that needs to be made. They then outsource that complete section to a co-development studio, because they are going to be cooperatively developing that area for you as the main studio. Are outsourcing studios typically paid salary still, or by project, with time between where you may not get paid? No, I think they're, well, I think it depends on the country. Most of the ones that I know about that are in like the Western world, right? Let's really generalize here. They are on the salary, from what I know. Most of the companies that I heard people working with. For example, Decagon Studios probably works a little bit different, because they'll hire contractors for a specific project, and then if you're really good, they'll probably keep on hiring you. If you have to go, or they want to shrink down their team, that's how they work, right? So you have these like more flexible ones as well. Let's see, there was a question about CGMA as well. Do you suggest taking CGMA courses? Yeah, if that's something that you're interested in. It's always the best, what's it called? The best investment is yourself, right? If you can level up your skill set, if you can level up like the tools that you know, and you become more valuable to the job market, right? So that's always good. I can't speak from experience, because I've never done that, because how would I even explain this? I don't really care about following like a course or something like that. I just want to explore my own stuff. And I kind of want to find like the spaces in between that I'm kind of interested in, like uniquely myself. Plus, I'm in a different position now as well, right? Isn't it common to have different people working on different games at outsourcing studios? Yep. Yeah. Usually outsourcing studios are more flexible in the project that they take on, because they have to have multiple ones at the same time, just for diversification, in terms of like financial diversification, right? So if one game falls through, then they can still work on the other games and kind of shift people around. So they have more flexibility when it comes to their business structure. So Vida is asking, how do they decide, for example, which props are going to go to outsource and which they return, and that they return inappropriate quality and style? Seems hard to nail. It's relatively simple. So the more dependencies something has, for example, if it's important to gameplay, if it's important to storytelling, if it's important to level design, they will do that in-house, because there's a lot of dependencies. What usually goes to outsource is, hey, we know the art style, but we just need to make like a bunch of chairs and tables and all that kind of stuff. That usually goes to outsource. So yeah, and then the quality and the style, like they will get access to like all the documents that the internal people have access to, right? So the art bible, and they also have dedicated feedback rounds with in-house artists or like leads from your company as well. So there's a lot of back and forth even with external companies. That's why there's even specific job roles dedicated to it. It's outsource manager, right? Or an art manager, kind of depends on what the studio is. But you have like a dedicated person who's going to be responsible purely for managing the outsource partners and where something goes and what the budget is and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a whole discipline by itself now. Henrik is saying, I bought some courses from GGMA over the last year, and now I have a job as a 3D artist with only self-taught knowledge. Yeah, see, that's good, right? Because sometimes we might be looking at the expense of a course, but then if you get a job out of it, that's all that's worth it, right? Cool. Is a prop artist role popular for AAA studios? Not anymore. Just in terms of numbers, I mean, I don't know the numbers, right? But from what I've seen, you just have like a couple of prop artists in-house for the most important stuff, and the rest get outsourced. I think by far now, because we all want to build like bigger worlds and more involved worlds, most of the artists are actually going to be environment artists, right? Because think about what I just said about outsourcing, right? If something has a lot of dependencies, then it becomes trickier to like manage that, because even if you send it to another team, you need to do so many like feedback rounds, and you need to be so involved that it's actually not worth like outsourcing it. Even if it would save you money, because over time, you're probably losing more money by talking to them all the time and being really involved and all that kind of stuff. Is it because there are now a million available 3D models on the web and in their storage? No, not really. That has nothing to do with it. Because the majority of available 3D assets, first of all, the majority of them suck. Let's be honest. The quality is not that high on most marketplaces. And the ones that are good, they are actually not appropriate for the games that like bigger AAA studios are making, right? Because then they buy, let's say, a chair, and then they still need to remodel it to make it into the style that they want. So it's kind of like it's easier to start from scratch at this point. Yeah, we got some cool people jumping in as well. Let's see. I tell you, many of these are not really good. Yeah, exactly, Henrik. This is talking about like the available assets, right, on the market. There's a lot of bullshit on the marketplaces. Let's see. So when you say environment artist, can you differentiate that from a prop artist? I mean, that's basically what we've been talking about, right? So an environment artist is in charge of like set dressing and storytelling, using actual pre-existing props, right? And then a prop artist basically makes the props that we as environment artists use to set dress the world, right? So if you think about like a pipeline, prop artists are usually the people that come before us, and then they give us the assets that we can then set dress with. But there's a little bit of back and forth as well, because sometimes you only know what you need by building it. And then, for example, it might be the case where as an environment artist, you would build a block out, and then you take that block out back and say like, hey, I need this made. And then they add that in the next batch that goes to outsourcing, right? Very common. A lot of studios do it this way. Yeah, I guess. Like a graphic designer compared to a graphics artist. Sorta. I mean, I'm not too sure with that comparison, actually. I'm just not too aware of it. Is that the version of environment art pretty similar to the title of the world builder? No, so... yeah, this is where it gets complex, right? So a world builder is a level artist, I think, from what I see. I think a world builder just sounds cooler than just being a level artist, right? But I think that they basically do the same thing. A world builder might just be like a bit more involved when it comes to actually sculpting terrain and, I don't know, making locations and all that kind of stuff. At least from what I can tell. But that would be a good case, Max, for actually looking at the application and compare it with like a level artist application and see what the differences are. Because I'm not sure either, but that's what my assumption is. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily tied to level design, but I might be wrong. Well, yeah, but so it's not. I don't think it's a guarantee either, right, Artem? Because I know that That's No Moon has world builder positions, but I don't know why they had to differentiate between level art and, well, let's actually have a look. Let's actually have a look. So let's do this exercise. Do they still have one open? No, boo, it's not saved. Oh. Interesting. According to AI, so take this with a grain of salt. Where's this coming from? I think it got saved from a job role that no longer exists. Oh no, here we go. Here we go. So let me switch, right? Which one is it? Let me actually just do this. So this job opening is no longer around, right? But building polished cinematic and in-game environments. So that's level artist stuff. Work closely with material artists and level designers, so separate from level design. Collaborate with all facets of art, game design, and technical art to develop and improve environment pipelines and prop creation. And scan acquisition to final in-game polish and optimization. Okay, cool. So yeah, they basically want to have like a wide variety between, hey, you need to know environment art stuff. You also need to know a bit of prop creation, and then also need to know a little bit about scan. So I don't think they are looking for specifics, right? They don't want you to specialize in all of them, but I think they want to see that you're shining, you're like really good at one thing, but then also know the other things as well. So let's actually see. Environment modeling and world building techniques. Yeah, so this is level art, like standard things. Modeling skills, and this is all bonus. So bonus is interesting because it kind of hints at like, hey, we are using scanned libraries, and if you have some sort of like knowledge on how to work with these and assemble environments with them, that's going to be a massive help, right? And then foliage is also a bonus. I think, honestly, that is very common now because there's a lot of people, a lot of studios that are looking for specific, like, foliage artists, I think. Self-motivated, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that was like the most relevant part here, right? So it kind of looks like it's the same as a level artist position. It might just be like a bit more involved in terms of like the actual individual art that you'll be doing. But it's kind of the same thing as a level artist position, in my opinion. Let's see. Let me see, there were some questions here as well. So Theo is chiming in on the outsourced conversation. So I got personally spotted by a known outsourcing company based on weapon art, but sadly in the UK. I can't finance a visa for juniors. As a Belgian guy, the Brexit hit hard. Yeah, so interesting there. It's not Brexit that did that. It is actually the changes that they did to the skilled worker visa program, because it went from like, oh, you only need like 25,000 to get into the UK as, on a skilled worker, and they boosted that to 38,000 now. So that's why it's really hard to get juniors in now, because there's no way that they're going to get paid like 38,000 a year in the UK. There's no way. So yeah, finding your first job in the UK game dev industry has just become way harder, which also has an effect on, well, it adds additional pressure onto schools as well, which is interesting. That it's interesting to see that like TGA, I think the game assembly, like has recently opened up like a new school here as well, or like is trying to set up a new school at this point. So they realize that there's like an opportunity there as well, which, to be fair, that's also why I'm here. Like, we're building a course as well. We want to get involved in helping students build up like the proper skill set to get into the games industry. Because yeah, I oftentimes feel that UK universities are a little bit lacking in the terms of the quality that they put out. ZBrush is expensive to me. Very sad. I cannot be bought with a single license like some Painter. Well, it used to be. It used to be you buy a single license and you would get it perpetually forever. So there's a lot of people that bought ZBrush like 10 years ago and they got all the updates for free. It's just whenever Maxon, like their now parent company, came in, they didn't like that much. So I'm studying at TGA now. Would be interested to see if any UK companies show up at the meet and greet next month. But you are not in the UK one, right, McFell? Let me see. There was another question here. Let's see, I've completed my degree some time ago. This is from color-coded Insignia. I've completed my degree some time ago and I'm facing rejections. It's pretty normal. Professionals I've talked to have suggested me to take a mentorship program. How advantageous is it and is it worth it? Yeah, it can be, depending on what you're looking for, right? I think a good indication that you're getting rejected, if you send out like, I mean, over 100 applications, and you get rejected by all of them or you get ghosted, that just means that you have to go back to like getting better at your craft, right? It's also, you need to take into account like the current situation in games as well. It's pretty tough. But yeah, it is the market giving you feedback, right? And it's very blunt about it too. But if you want to take a mentorship, yeah, that can help. Look for someone that you aspire to be, right? If you like their trajectory in games and if you aspire to be like them at some point, a mentorship program could definitely be helpful. Let's see, there were some other questions as well. My goal is to work in AAA game studios like Naughty Dog. What should I do? Should I just keep being a props artist and find another role like material or texture artist? I personally think that that's the wrong way of going about it. I think that you need to make sure that you know what you want to do and then become really good at it, and then Naughty Dog will put you on the radar. Because what a lot of people think that you should do is that, hey, this company needs this. Cool, I'm gonna train really hard and work really good at it. But what if that company is no longer around? Or what if that company like 3 years down the line has completely different interests? And let's say you've built up, I'm giving a stupid example, right? But let's say you've built up a portfolio to get to Naughty Dog and you're doing like your best to get there and you're making like a bunch of Uncharted inspired stuff, let's say. And then they're making a space game. It's like, oh, okay, they're completely doing something different now. The best way that I think to approach it, plus also Naughty Dog is really, really, really difficult to get into as a beginner as well. So take that into account too, right? I'm not saying that's impossible, but you just have to like work way harder than to reach that bar, right? But yeah, what you should do still applies. You should figure out what you love to do and then become really good at it and then apply to Naughty Dog. And then if they have a position that matches your skill set, they'll hire you, right? If you're really good. Yeah, TGA is in Liverpool, yeah. Yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see some disruption going on in the education space. Hudson is saying, a senior said that it's easier for them to get hired as a senior rather than a junior. Effed up, huh? Let me think about that. My brain just short-circuited when you said that. Wait, a senior said that it's easier for them to get hired as a senior rather than a junior. Wait, isn't that normal? Because you are overqualified at some point, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm not getting it. I'm too smooth-brained for that question. Dang it. Thoughts on a senior modeler in films wanting to jump over in games? Example, me. Learning that modeling for games is way more technical, but enjoying it. I'm not too involved with like actually modeling like really in-depth specific prompts and all that kind of stuff. The biggest thing is honestly not like the modeling necessarily. It's the performance optimizations, like making sure that you can hit that you know how to optimize your texture space, making sure that you kind of know what like the poly count is on certain objects. Knowing how like certain techniques work in like games like LODs, all those kind of things, right? Because compared to the VFX industry, that's going to be completely different. So that's what I would focus on. It's just the performance restrictions and how you need to meet them is probably going to be pretty interesting. Pretty interesting to go and look into. Man, I'm having so much fun chatting. Kind of don't want to do feedback, not gonna lie. We'll dive into it in a second. Let me sit down first. Let's see. Next question. What do you think about the US and the games industry here? Pretty good. I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, definitely well paid. That's for sure. I mean, I look at some of the entry-level things. Of course, there's cost of living and all that kind of stuff as well, right? So don't want to take that away immediately. But yeah, I look at some of the entry levels. There's some of the entry-level salaries in the US compared to, I mean, what I am now, and it's way higher. That's one of the big benefits, I think. But yeah. I don't really have any experience with US games industry in general. I would love to go to GDC, which is happening now, I think. Maybe next year I'll go. Teo's coming in with some advice for people that are struggling. It's been 2 years since I'm getting some rejections. Even if some seniors told me my portfolio would work for a junior position, it's a matter of patience for sure. It is because look at the current labor market, right? And it is very tough as junior now. It just is. That doesn't mean that we're never going to get back to like normal or that it's not going to get better, right? Because I'm very positive on that. But yeah, it is a matter of patience. I think that's what it comes down to. Like I had a mentorship yesterday and I was saying this to the person that I was mentoring, that what you want to do as an artist, especially now, is you just want to keep knocking on that door. And at some point that door is going to open up. But the thing that I would hate to see is that people stop knocking at a certain point and then that door opens up and they're no longer there. That's what I don't want to see, right? And it's tough. There's a lot of personal situation stuff that comes into that as well. But I feel that if you're consistent, you keep putting your good work in and you become better over time and you apply to like all the places, you're going to get a job. You're going to get a job. It is just rough at this point. Color-coded insignia is saying, yeah, I've seen so many less jobs for juniors in the UK. That is true. But Also, it's kind of weird because I know that that's true, but then also I'm surrounded by juniors that got hired in the last year. So, yeah. At this point, I'm just learning environment art because it's so fun. Yeah. We're all gonna make it, right, Tim? Slight adjustments. We can all make it. Because we're all gonna make it kind of feels like, oh, if we just coast, we're all gonna make it. No, I think you do have to put in work. But if you put in work, you're consistent, you apply yourself, you are gonna make it. That's the difference there. Irfan is saying, but to get a visa here in the US, it's kind of hard. I mean, yeah. I mean, I live in the UK now and I kind of had to go through the whole visa process. And I imagine that is for the US, it's harder. Yeah. But then also, I mean, the benefits of it too, right? So there's a benefit there as well. McFell is saying, do you know if schools like TGA cost money in the UK? In Sweden it's free. Oh yeah, it's probably going to cost money. I mean, I think the standard UK university rate is like 9,000 something. I'm not too sure, but either... So I don't know the rules about this, right? Which would be pretty interesting to look up. Either they disrupt that space and they're gonna undercut them and provide way more value if they can get like the same sort of value that TGA offers in Sweden, right? Or maybe it's just gonna be the same price. And then, I don't know. It would be very interesting to see. Luis is saying, do you know if there are any studios now implementing AI tech in games? I have no idea if I should have learned AI tools for development. As far... I do know in concept art that they use some AI stuff. But I wouldn't learn into it. Like, it's not there yet. Especially as a 3D environment artist. Yeah, there's some like clickbaity stuff that looks like it's gonna take your job. Just ignore all that. Keep focusing on the stuff that you bring to the table with 3D environment art. And then texture generation, I highly guess it is now. Nah, I've not seen it, at least. I've not seen a single texture being generated. I mean, I have a limited view, right? So if you want to know more about this, look at, what is the project called again? Project Ava, I think. From Keyword Studios. So Keyword Studios is basically doing like an R&D project by like how much they can actually use AI in a video game. And it's very surprising that it's actually not that feasible yet. But I watched like a whole presentation on this and it was super interesting. Let me see. And it's not like they weren't trying, right? Let me see. I cannot find like the actual link to the video, but here's an example to kind of get a condensed version, right? It was really cool though. Like look into it and see what they did with it. Because that is like an actual applicable thing that they try to do. Let's see. Still Wakes the Deep was made by them. It's so freaking good. Yeah, I mean, Keyword Studios is huge. I think they have like over 70 studios in the world now. I'm not sure about that number, but I know that they're really, really big. I found that chat AI pretty helpful to write little scripts to enhance workflows. Yeah, but as soon as you try to do something more complicated, it kind of falls off the cliff as well. It is, so my approach to it is I'll check out tools, right? Because to me, it's just a tool. And if I can use a tool to like enhance my workflow, yeah, I'll give it a try. I've just not seen anything that's like really useful. So yeah, there's just so one other thing that I'll say about like the whole AI topic, because I don't know, it gets so tiring. The thing, yeah, we did it live on our chat as well, like in the community. Swan knows what we're talking about, like our AI castle that we tried to make. It just wasn't great. But what was the last thing that I was going to say? So the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the reason why AI feels like it's all encompassing and it's coming down on us is because there's a shit ton of money going into it. And that money at a certain point, if the margins become less and less because people are tired of AI, they're going to go somewhere else. This is going to happen. This has happened with crypto, NFTs, blah, blah, blah. You can, or metaverse, or whatever you want to do, right? It's going to move on at a certain point. And those points when the money, the massive amount of money actually moves out of a space is when I would recommend actually checking out that space, because then that's when it becomes more interesting and less filled with charlatans that are trying to peddle you stuff. So that would be my recommendation. Do you think going in the country, doing some pro meetings would be the key to finding a job, like speaking in real life with people? I mean, that could be it. You could find some success with that. It's not necessary. I've never done that, you know? I mean, also taking into account that like the industry is a little bit different now, but I don't think that you need to go in person to talk to people and spend a bunch of money to go to like these conventions, and distract yourself from just making better art, right? Because sometimes like what you have is, if you put something really good out there in the world, a lot of people are going to see it, and that's basically what you want to do anyway. Yeah, the poo castle, exactly. Generative fill in Photoshop saved me a bunch of times. Yeah, and there's a bunch of cool stuff. Like I use Canva now to do like our social media marketing, and they have like cool tools like, oh, remove the background from this image. Super nice. Before that, I was doing all the masking by hand. Dude, that is so tedious when I can just click a singular button now. It's so good. So that's what I mean, right? Like there's pros and cons to everything. Art Engine does some AI stuff with photo scan textures. Seen a few material artists test it out, but don't think it's sticking around. Oh yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that when generative AI came out in the beginning, that they generated base textures and then built on top of it, and they had like massive success. So yeah, it's just you have to then counteract that with like, okay, how ethical is it to use? Like, am I going to get in trouble, especially as a company? Am I going to get in trouble for using this? Because yeah, the law is still catching up with a bunch of this stuff, right? Especially copyright law. It takes a long time. They're still figuring it out. Investing my retirement into Star Citizenships. Shit, you can only buy one then. What is it? Like the most expensive pack is like 24,000 or something like that? Stuff is crazy, man. Stuff is crazy. How many teams? This is a question from Route 1 on the team challenge. How many teams will there be in this team challenge? I don't know. It depends on the amount of applicants. If we have an overwhelming amount of teams or like an overwhelming amount of applications, we might have to limit the amount of teams, but we'll see. It kind of depends. Like last time we had 15 teams. If it's around the same, then yeah. We'll keep going with 15 as well. But we have some cool other plans that will be revealed soon. Let's see, last question, and then we'll dive into some feedback over here. So 3D studios, well, You can still ask questions, right? But then we're gonna go into like the feedback itself. Can I be an environment artist with the majority of my work on ArtStation being almost all material posts combined with some small environments, or should I call myself a material artist? So if the majority of your portfolio is materials, then it's just highly likely that they'll hire you for your material work compared to your environment artwork, right? You can call yourself whatever you want in the title, but let's say you have, I'm just gonna throw a number, right? Let's say your entire wall is filled with materials and you have one prop in one environment. It is just more likely that they'll hire you for your material work because that is the big thing on your portfolio, right? So you need to cater your portfolio towards what you want people to see, not necessarily what is there to just fill up your portfolio, right? Because yeah, you kind of make your own bed in that situation, right? And what I mean by that is if you have a lot of materials on there, it's likely that you'll be hired for a material job, not for an environment artist job. Do a lot of material artists get hired? I'm not sure. I think what I do know is that there's not a lot of them and the quality bar is really high. So if you are just doing material spheres, you need to be way better, because the way that I look at it is you can make a material in a week easy, right? Now try to do an environment art piece in like a week. There's no way. So there's this kind of like interesting thing that happens where a lot of people will put their materials online, but it needs to be way higher level because they're really easy to pump out as well, right? Comparatively to other things, right? So yeah. By the way, your thumbnails upgraded, Tim. Oh, thanks so much, Hudson. I appreciate it. Cool. Okay, let's keep asking questions if you want to, but we're gonna dive into some reviews now, or like not reviews, like we're gonna turn into some feedback. Let's turn to the Discords. Let's see. Who are we looking at first? First of all, Zaim was late by 4 minutes, so we couldn't include you in this session, Zaim. So sorry. It is the longest intro ever. I know. Oh, I know. Hope more engagement like this will come soon. Yeah, we're just chilling here. I mean, it's also, it is just nice to talk to people, and if then the people have a lot of conversations about things, right? That's always like nice. It was an interesting intro. Yeah, I think so too. It was very engaging. Very engaging. So I appreciate all of you for chatting about. Let's see. First one for today, we're gonna talk to Mikval. Let's have a look. So Mikval is focusing on another project this week. I tried removing the background fog since it felt almost like a sandstorm to show the sky and some clouds. Does it work, or should I revert it back? Let's have a look at the other one. So I honestly don't mind like the last one because it kind of adds to like the smoggy kind of atmosphere, right? So I would probably revert it. Where's my pen? There we go. So the old iteration was probably better because there's a couple of things there, right? So that smog just adds to the vibes, right? So it adds to the vibes. Plus also less visibility helps because we kind of want to hide a bunch of stuff for this, right? I don't really care about seeing these buildings, to be honest. And if I If I want to see them, I want to see them like way more detailed. And then, oh, yeah, we're getting into just like dangerous territory, right? Finally, for the roofs, I'm not sure what to do with the roofs. Do you think the model for the roof is all right in its current state? Or does it need more props and details? Not that much for this week, but thanks anyway. Yeah. No worries. I mean, the stuff that you do have on there is pretty cool. But if you just have like, I mean, like a couple more billboards never hurts, like a cyberpunk city, right? Maybe a couple different size billboards. Maybe having like a little door on there as well, like on this module. And then maybe just like, yeah, a couple more vents, right? Just like a couple arrangements of like different vents. Like a small cluster, a medium cluster, and then like a big cluster. So yeah. So that's the stuff that I would add, is just AC units, right? Like in clusters. Doors. Because a door is always a good indication of like every building is going to have a roof access, right? So if you have a door, that's going to make it like way more believable. That's going to be helpful. And then just billboards. By the way, a bit of bragging, I got engaged. Oh shit! Congratulations, Hudson. That is awesome. That is awesome. Congratulations to you both. Oh, that's amazing. I thought you reviewed some work already while I was watching the portfolio review. No, we're just chatting. I mean, the other roofs and the other pictures primarily. Yeah, just in general, right? Like the white box stuff. Because you have like some more modules. What is always nice is that you have like these AC units that are like connected, right? So you have a box and then you have like a thing that connects it, and then you have another box, and you kind of have like a thingy that goes down into the roof itself. And then you can kind of make it in like a really modular way where you can just do like stuff like this, right? Those sort of connections, they always like work really well. That's the stuff that I did on like Jurassic World Evolution as well. So, but that stuff was like really fun to play around with. So yeah, something like that. Blade Runner feelings, hell yeah. I'm too shy to share it on Discord. No! Share it. Cool. Yeah. Let's see. Was there anything else? Props and details. No, I think that's about it. So AC units could be really cool. Doors and potentially billboards. I think the billboards are kind of like, they're kind of optional. I think if you have AC units in the door, then that is cool. Yeah, that's true, Swan. It will be immortalized in just one random stream episode now, Hudson. Exactly. Cool. Thank you for sharing your work, McFell. It's looking really nice. I like where it's going. I also just like the chunky silhouette changes that are happening on the roofs right now. It's starting to look really nice, man. It's starting to really come together. It's great stuff. Swan, don't make him shy to share it on YouTube. It's too late now. It's there forever. It's too late. Let's see. Next up, Alexander. A continuation of our diorama chat from last time. Let's see. Sorry, Hendrik. Different types of roofs, plant house, swimming pool, roof garden, and so on. Yeah, those are like, I mean, those are cool, right? Oh, sorry, a penthouse. I read that as like plant house. A swimming pool. A swimming pool is honestly like a good idea because that's probably the cheapest one to make, apart from the shader potentially. But that could be interesting. Yeah, it's always time. Time gets in the way. But yeah, thanks for those suggestions. That's awesome. Cool. Let's see how I can help Alexander here. I tried to bring what you mentioned in the previous session about composition. I made more than one option, but now my question is also about the camera. I designed the textures to be viewed from like a third-person perspective, but I'm not sure if that works for a diorama with this approach. Any suggestions while still considering composition? I mean, if you found yourself... It's just a style of rendering, right? So if you feel yourself drawn to like an isometric kind of viewport, that's cool. I would still consider what we talked about last time, right? Where you then break up this space a little bit, have like this pillar a little bit broken up as well, and then put something like in the middle of it so that we kind of have like something interesting in the middle that is kind of happening. Right, so make space for that composition. This one works well, right? Because we can put something in the middle. Oh, what you could do for a statue is you could go to like museum sites, and oftentimes they have, not oftentimes, like some museums, I don't know which ones, they have like a free downloadable statue that you can just get. So you could use that either as like a base to then do your own texture pass on, or just use it in your scene. So yeah, online museums usually are really helpful for this stuff. Obviously, look at, well, it's not going to be commercial anyway. I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's more up to you than anything else. It's just you gotta kind of. This is where like artistic intuition comes in, where you just have to decide like, oh, I kind of like this more, or I feel like I'm drawn to like an isometric perspective. Just go with that, right? And then kind of make it interesting, because this kind of feels like too clean, and it doesn't feel like a good way of approaching something like this, right? Where if you kind of make it broken up and you kind of split it up into multiple pieces, you can kind of, you want to find a balance and find harmony between the style of the building, but then also the rendering that you've chosen as well. So that would be good to take into account. Otherwise, you have to adjust your composition as well to something like this. So the choice is yours, Alexander. I'll leave that to you. Bye, Hudson. Thank you for joining us here. Oh, you're also learning tree assets right now, and it's so long to do compared to using SpeedTree. Yeah, honestly, I don't know if you're still there, Hudson, but if you're making tree assets, just use SpeedTree. God, it is, unless if you're doing like a unique tree, you can kind of get away with like sculpting things, but otherwise, most of it is going to be done in SpeedTree anyway. Let's see. So next up is Justin. Justin is making some cool progress. I saw the update that you did, Justin, and it was looking really nice. I had a sneak peek. Honestly, oh, I'll consider learning Plant Factory. I mean, that's true. There are other options as well, like M3 and all that kind of stuff. So there are options there, right? But yeah. Don't do the stupid thing like me and try to build your own tool, because that's just, yeah, it's pretty dumb. So Justin, this is honestly what we should have done like way earlier, where we can actually look at the values and then figure out what was causing like the main issue when it comes to just the values, right? So I really appreciate you doing that, man. This is really helpful. That also means that we can now kind of see that the roughness over here is very, very chaotic, right? There's a lot of noise in just a roughness channel where, let's see, you have like certain surfaces that should be wet, but then the pots are like more shiny than a wet surface, so it becomes very hard to actually read the surface from just the responsive values of it, right? So yeah, there's a lot of noise in this, and there's a lot of variation that doesn't really make sense, right? Because if you, for example, have, I don't know if you still have like an area like this, you have like a wet area over here, for example, right? I expect that wet area to be darker than these assets, right? But there's like a difference between them, because something that is wet is going to be like really, really shiny, right? So that's something to think of as well. Just the value hierarchy of your roughness channel. But let's see. Mainly my base color and roughness for the assets using rock and stone textures. So value adjustments on the rock and stone texture. Is it okay to add some contrast in the tones to break them up? Because they're coming from the same source, they should be exact. No, I think you can use like variation in them. It kind of depends on what you're using that variation for. What I would potentially do in this case is not... I would use decals instead, so that you can kind of make like better use of them as well, because I don't know why you would try to break them up even more, because I kind of like the way that it kind of just blends in with each other now. It kind of feels like nice and uniform, which gives it like a nice read in terms of, hey, this is like the natural rock, right? So this is nature, but this is stuff that comes from nature, right? But they still have the same sort of values in them as well. And that can be really cool. So that there's a link between those two. So I don't think you actually need to do way more, because now I feel honestly this is like a big improvement on what we saw in like the last couple of weeks. Maybe not the week before, right? I mean, you did a cool job on like improving it. But I feel like now we're getting to like a picture that becomes like really nice and readable. So you've done a really good job of like balancing everything out. So then reintroducing contrast is probably not the right way to go about this. I've also been adjusting the lighting again, mainly on the left side, and wanted to ask if it's more visible without disrupting the natural vignette of the scene. Let's see. I'm gonna compare this to last week's as well, if I can. So if we copy the image, if we put that in here, we are just gonna do a one-to-one comparison, and then we'll see. So in terms of like your scene and what actually changed, right? So now we're looking at this week, and then this is the week before. In terms of noise, way better read, right? And I also like that you shifted your camera a little bit so that we can see this staircase going up. That is a good choice as well. However, in terms of the lighting, I don't think it barely changed. I think it became a little bit less noticeable because you got rid of this light, right? So I don't know. I don't feel like anything really big changed there apart from like the camera movement a little bit and having this included, which is nice, right? But yeah, in terms of that, not too big of a difference. I will also say the way that the bell was rendered last week, I don't know what you exactly did, but the metal contrast here came out like way nicer than it does this week. So that might also be something to investigate as well. Maybe it's just a base color, because now it kind of has like that deep, dark, like metal tint that you kind of want to see compared to something that's a bit more light. So that would be a couple of my notes here. Let me just add them. So the bell is too light compared to last week. Right, so you can use that as a comparison point. And then this area and the set dressing that you've done here. Right, so basically this entire area. I love the adjustments that you've done. Done a really freaking good job about that. However, this area is still as dark as it was before. I think that's just a light function. Didn't touch the texture for the bell. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what is causing it, right? But like just looking at it visually, I like this in terms of contrast comparing to the newer one. Because it kind of stands out really nice, you know? But yeah, if you know what's causing it, that would be something to keep in mind as well. Let me read through your notes again. So, what are your thoughts on the adjustments I made to the moss texture? I've made some changes based on last week, as well as re-vertex painted it based on new references I've been using as well. Let's see, the moss texture. Let me actually see. I mean, the thing, again, that I really like is that it doesn't feel like you're scattering it everywhere, right? You're more conservative with it, which is what I love. I love the changes that you've done here. I cannot say this enough. Like, being more picky with how you use your moss has made your moss more stand out compared to the rest of the scene. Because if we just, let me disable my overpaint here. If we just look at like the way that this area reads, right? It was just, it's mossy, it's stony, it's watery, it's kind of like all things at the same time. And you did a really good job of cleaning that up so that now you have like a stone area, and then you have like certain areas like closer to the water that are more mossy. Beautiful, right? You could potentially even push that a little bit more so that like the moss becomes even more central to like the water area, right? And then maybe even here using moss only on rocks that are kind of underneath like a drip of water, right? That could be potentially cool. But already the changes that you've done, really, really solid. Like massive improvements, you know? I'm no longer worried about like the big picture. I'm actually really liking where you're going with this. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been harsh to you before, right? But this is the thing that I was kind of looking for, and maybe I did a bad job of explaining it as well throughout. And obviously, looking at the actual buffer views was really helpful. But yeah, done a really good job, man. Really good. So keep pushing that. and keep try to find like a good balance and keep that balance as well. But yeah, I really like it. Really, really good. Kind of needed that kick in the ass to motivate me to improve. I know. I think sometimes people do need that kick in the ass, right? But yeah, I think so. You also taught me that having these buffer views to look at was actually like a very, very good way that I kind of just forgot to use, right? Because we could have probably had a more productive conversation 3 weeks ago or something like that. But yeah, like Henrik is saying, it was worth it, like 100%. But yeah, cool, Justin. Keep pushing it. And do these comparisons, right? Like where you have your screenshot from last week and this week and see what you maybe missed out on and maybe like retweak some things and kind of keep using that as you're going forward, because that's a really powerful tool to make yourself a bit more objective about the work that you're doing. Because I know that it's really hard when you're down into the trenches and you're just working on like all these individual pieces. It becomes really hard to see the overall image in what you did. So yeah, keep using that as a tool as well. Cool, Justin. Again, great improvements. Thanks so much for sharing your work as well, man. Yeah, this is becoming a really, really stunning piece. Cool. Next up is Theo. Theo is here. So Theo is making a meat cannon. Okay. That felt gross as I was saying it. Let's have a look. Cool little looking gun. For next time, like it would be helpful if you ask a question on what I can help with, you know? If it kind of makes it a little bit more specific, that could be helpful, because I don't know what kind of phase you're in at the moment, right? So I'm just gonna give like a couple of pointers that would be nice. This is disgusting. I love it. The first thing that stands out to me is the merging between these two gaps, right? So you have the actual barrel and then also the flesh that are coming together, but you have this like really harsh cutoff between the two. So I would look into blending them a bit better. Hey Guillaume, thank you for showing up. Yeah, if you must go to sleep, that's all right. That's all right. Enjoy your sleep, and thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. So yeah, blending them together, that would be cool. You can kind of do the same thing here as well, where you kind of just have like these really like nasty like growths, like just sticking out of it, right? And same thing here. And what could also be interesting is, and you could do this with like the pre-existing mesh, is that you try to increase the tension that you have in between these bones and the flesh that's surrounding it. So what I mean by that is that you kind of have like the flesh piling up at the sides, and that you feel that the bones are kind of keeping the flesh in. And you could just do that by grabbing the geometry of the flesh, right? And just like pulling it out a little bit more. So that you get this tension of like, oh, the flesh was there before, and then someone snapped like a rib cage on it, and like the flesh is kind of just like, it's barely kept in there. Is the meat still alive? That's a scary question. I don't want to know the answer to that. I mean, it could give you some good opportunities, right? To like make it pulsate a little bit. That's actually, I think that's where you were going as well, Connor. So that could be like an interesting an interesting thing that you could just like animate with like a world position offset, right? You can just be like, kind of have it like pulsating. Not watching and just listening to this part is weird. Yeah, I think a whole bunch of people just left because they're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Henrik is saying, it's a nice idea, but I find the meat and the bone a little unrealistic. It kind of feels too clean and unorganic. Yeah, I think that's just this comes down to they feel detached from each other, right? And you kind of want to have like some pieces of like meat just like almost spilling out, and the bones need to be like clamping into the meat, and kind of it needs to feel gross, you know, really gross and connected, and yeah, disgusting. Cool. So the bones pressure the meat, right? Or they exert a force on the meat that's underneath them. And in that way, you're gonna connect them like together more. You're gonna make them more connected, which is gonna be nice. And then you could do some really interesting things where think about like how a person would be holding the revolver, and then add like blood and bloody fingerprints or something like that on the gun, you know, so that you can feel the person that is holding the gun, and he just because he's using the gun, it's just like, oh, I'm kind of touching it. Ugh. So yeah, holding it with like bloody hands, that could be cool. So you could almost have like little spotches of like fingerprints, and like the trigger kind of has like, I don't know, you could even have like the trigger that still has like some gunk on it, you know, because someone pulled the trigger, but then kind of still had like some gunk on it. That would be cool. Justin is saying, I think where the flesh meets the metal component on the revolver should have a little bit of a pinch. It kind of looks flat, especially if that piece is rotating to turn another bullet into the barrel. Oh yeah, that's a good point actually. So kind of have like a little bit of an interaction over here, right? Where it's almost like if this thing is gonna rotate the entire time, that also means that it's gonna scrape off like a little bit of meat as well. Because also, I guess it don't come out. Yeah, I guess it don't come out. But it's literally gonna scrape like a little bit of flesh off here, right? So you kind of wanna have some gross stuff like sticking out. Ugh. Yeah, cool. Very helpful, chat. That was awesome. Thank you so much for the good feedback as well. Let me make sure that we got everything there. So Max is saying, I think the little pieces of overlap here, where the gums stick out over the metal, make it feel way more alive. Like if the meat was doing it on the chamber part, that would help a lot. Yeah, exactly. And the textures feel really good. Yeah, I think so too. Like the base of it is already really solid, right? It's just like massaging it all together. That's really gonna set it apart now. This would fit into Hunt Showdown. Yeah, for sure. Cool. But thank you, Theo. This looks awesome, by the way. I know that we focus a lot on feedback, right? But this looks great. A great little rendition, and I think if you nail those like little bits and pieces between the individual elements, you're gonna have a killer piece on your portfolio, man. This is awesome. Is the third weapon I make where people tell me would fit in Hunt Showdown? I mean, you have a style, right? But I feel like the other weapons, God, well, no, not really. I was thinking more about like another weapon that you made, but I might be wrong. That kind of fit more into Scorn rather than Hunt. But to be fair, like this kind of weapon could also be in Scorn. It's almost like it's a merging of Scorn and Hunt Showdown in some weird like alternate universe. It's oh God, it's it's called Flesh Showdown. That's the game that you're building. You're just not telling us about it, right? It sounds like such a wrong game. Fuck. That's why I was so hesitant on saying it. Kind of feels like it deserves its own section, you know? Cool. Let's move on from that. Next one up is Max. So Max is making a cool little post here. And Max is looking for feedback on how does the lighting look as a first blockout pass. I've not included very colorful lights yet because I'm trying to just focus on the values. But any advice on stylized lighting would be appreciated as well. I don't know what you mean with like stylized lighting. Oh my God, the game could be called Fleshed Out. Oh, this is gross. We'll start making Flesh Showdown tonight. Fuck's sake. Well, I did it to myself. Okay. I'll take the blame. Let's have a look. So stylized lighting, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I think that you just mean more focused lighting, I guess, or more... I don't know. I don't know what stylized lighting would look like, actually. It's more intense and out there with like color usage, right? That's probably what I would assume. So let's have a look at the lighting. First of all, the first thing that I'm gonna say is, so when we're talking about lighting, I want to see more variation and also more focus in the area that matters. So I want you to focus on the focus area or focus point, right? More dramatic. That's probably a way to say it. Yeah, that's probably a good way to say it, Luis. Was referencing the kind of intense, colorful lighting like in Stray. Yeah, I see. But I would say that like the lighting doesn't really stray too far from like realistic lighting. It's more about like the environment that's kind of being used in it, right? Let's get back to what I was saying though. So with variation, let's talk about focus first, right? So this is going to be the focal point, which is good. That's definitely where the main focus is going to be. But that means that we have to balance out these additional ones a little bit better. I don't think this one is as problematic, but this one and that one, we will probably have to dim them down just a little bit. So what that could mean is if we just do like a quick, is it dodge? It's not dodge, it is burn. If we just do a quick burn pass, right? And we're gonna turn this down. I'm gonna turn this down as well. What that means is that now we're being drawn to the center, whereas before our vision was more distracted between like all these different lights, right? So that's something that it doesn't take a lot of time, but it focuses our attention a little bit more on the stuff that matters first, and then we can look at all the other stuff. So yeah. So we want to turn this down, turn this one down as well. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's more... Oh God, I started drawing on top of the picture. So, oh, do it again. Not paying attention. So we'll turn this down, we'll turn this one down as well. And then it's more, we're not talking about variation, we're talking about balance really, right? So let's bring that up as well. Balance, and that allows us to focus on the area that matters, right? So that's gonna lead to that. Let's see. Also, what's important, keep your lighting as it is right now, right? But get a texture pass done first, especially in newer versions from Unreal. Lumen Global Illumination is going to be bouncing and using the base colors to reflect the lights in your scene dynamically, right? So before you continue any further, do a base texture pass, because that will help you get a clear idea of where you need to go with your lighting as well. Hey Teo, thank you for popping in. Have a good sleep. And yeah, thanks for being here. Lumen, my worst enemy. No. No, it's not. It's beautiful. Just ignore it when it comes to performance, you know? You'll be fine. Okay. How was the overall composition reading? I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying before, right? In terms of the composition, I'm always a bigger fan of something that's like a little bit more offset. This one feels very static. It feels very boring comparatively, right? Because we just have, it's right in front of us. We don't have to do any searching. There's no sort of like dynamicism going out in the composition. So in terms of making a scene feel more dynamic, this one is way better. Right? Because we're actually led to something, and it's also a little bit offset as well. Usually what you can do is, a rule that I use like a lot is the rule of thirds. Imagine that these lines were straight because I was too lazy. And then you can kind of use these points as a way to decide where your focal point is going to be, right? So a perfect grid. Exactly. No. You're looking at it wrong. I'm drawing a grid in perspective, you know? I'm actually an artist, you know? Like, trust me. But yeah, so this would allow us to, if this is going to be like your focal point, we just want to shift that just a little bit more. And then we can extend basically how a person will travel through the scene by going from like the right to left, right? So that would be good. The rule of thirds, very helpful. I use that a lot. It's built into Unreal Engine as well. So you can go to your cinematic viewport, and then you have like a bunch of overlays that can be really, really helpful. The golden ratio. Okay, let's go. There we go. Perfect. I actually don't use the golden ratio ever. I've never used it because I kind of find it a weird little rule. Like the rule of thirds is like very easy to kind of understand, right? I'll use that for my next project. No, it's live. Don't take a screenshot. No, don't do it. It's gone. You've never seen it. Cool. So yeah, the overall composition, like we can do like these couple of changes, right? Or, well, basically improve on what you already have, right? Like this first screenshot is really good. I think this is very interesting to look at. And it also allows us to have, yeah, a more interesting composition. Do the structural elements in the space look grounded and believable? I think so. I do think so. I'd be curious what you're gonna do with the planks, because at this point, I'm not 100% sure what the planks are all about and why this tram is like broken up. So I'm a little bit confused by like what's the story here. because we have a destroyed tram, but then we also have a person that's trying to fix whatever destroyed the tram as well. So I'm not too sure what is happening here yet. And I've also not read into the story that's behind it, right? So I tried to go in kind of blind with this, but I'm not too sure what's going on. I know that something destroyed this tram, and then someone is trying to fix the background of it. I'm not too sure yet. But yeah, so that would be something to look into. Yeah, first what I would do when it comes to the story is what destroyed a tram. This is a domestic train. Oh my god. I will say that there will be a graffiti piece as a focal point. I'm going to add some set dressing in a car for next week. Yeah, but I would say, so what destroyed the tram? Because honestly, the tram kind of feels just destroyed for no purpose. And it's just like, okay. Because if you really think about it, it would potentially be more interesting to have an abandoned tram and people are living in subways and they made it their home or something like that, right? But then they're not gonna go to the effort of destroying a tram when they can just open a door and live in it, if that makes sense, right? So the way to solve that would just be to move the tram that you already have, move that to the left, and then just have an open space in between these two trams. They kind of convert it into a space that they can live in, right? Because yeah, if you just have a destroyed tram, I kind of want to know what destroyed it, right? Or I kind of want to see what is very often referred to as a cause and effect. So you give me a destroyed tram, me as a viewer, I'm going to be looking for, okay, what destroyed that tram? What was the cause of it, right? So yeah, think about it in those terms as well. Plus, also, if you can reuse the tram and you don't have to do the interior and make it all look good, that's going to save you a hell of a lot of time too. So that's a bonus on top of everything. Cool, Max. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Yeah, lovely to see this environment. I mean, the bones of the environment are really cool, right? I like the shapes that you got going on. Like it kind of, even from the modeling and the shapes themselves, it looks like it's going to be like a nice chunky stylized scene at this point. So keep it up. Curious to see more. Let's see, Giovanni is up next. Some overall opinions on how the scene is looking. More specifically, I like to know what I can do to improve my lighting. The dark areas look way too dark, but when I try to brighten them up, it looks washed out. It looks washed out. I think what you might do is, or what might be interesting to look into is just bloom, right? Because it looks like they are making use of like some nice bloom where you can see like the shape of the window, and then you kind of have like this outline against it, where you're kind of missing that, especially on the left. And then yeah, you got like some atmospherics coming in already, but you can definitely emphasize them way more by potentially even just having like a fake mesh that just has like some volumetrics like attached to it. Sure, thank you for the feedback. Awesome. Ancillary coming in with a random comment. Love it. Love to see it. Let's see. But yeah, curious to see what you're going to do with the story, Max. But let's see. So back to Giovanni's work. The dark areas look way too dark. I would even say that I don't think they are too dark. Because I think the actual concept art is darker than you have it, honestly. So I don't think it's necessarily too dark. It's just more about like the volumetric feel of the whole thing. Last, do you have some tips or suggestions on how to expand this project beyond the concept? I'm going towards making a believable space instead of strictly recreating the concept. I don't think you need to, because then we're getting into scope creep, right? Thanks for being here, Coded Insignia. Thank you so much for being active as well. And have a good night. So I don't necessarily want to get into like scope creep and that you have to extend it necessarily. Yeah, so I would not do it. So because the reason why I also say this is because you already have like 2 additional screenshots. I mean, for example, this guy could be pretty cool once you have like all the destroyed beams and all that kind of stuff coming in here, right? Once you have all that stuff and there's like moss growing from it, or like foliage growing from it, and then the foliage is kind of spilling in like all over the place. This screenshot by itself could be like the secondary screenshot that you need. And then you don't have to do like a whole different set or expand upon what you already have, because you're going to have to build it for the main shot anyway. So I would look at your main image and then just decide on like a couple of detail images where you spend a whole bunch of time on making it really good for your portfolio instead of, I don't know, designing the next room or something like that and going bigger. Because what I want you to focus on, and this is just for everyone out there, right? Go smaller, but go higher in quality. Because that's always going to be better than just making something that's bigger, but less quality. So I want you to focus on the quality of things as well. That's the most important thing here. And then you got this guy, which is currently not that interesting. Just in terms of like the composition, it feels, I don't know, kind of feels dull. You also have to do a lot of background work as well. I don't know. I think this one is cool. This one is kind of meh. What could be a cool detail shot is just having like a shot from like this angle or something like that, right? Where you see like the staircase. There's like a detail shot. My goal was mostly only to add maybe a couple of props for set dressing, but didn't explain that right. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the thing. If you want to add more to this in terms of assets and just detail, that's the way to go, right? That's definitely the way to go. Hey, Connor, thank you so much for popping in and being an active chatter. I really appreciate it, man. Have a nice evening. Cool. So yeah, that's it from my side as well, Giovanni. Thank you so much for posting your work. Yeah. Keep pushing on those volumetrics. I think that's going to be what is going to make like a big difference in the overall scene scope, right? And then make all this broken stuff, make it look as good as you can. Like really add like a bunch of geometry, really try to make it look unique. Yeah, because you're going to spend a whole bunch of time on like the center of this piece to make it look really, really, really good. Cool, Giovanni. Keep up the great work. Next up is Moonlight. Moonlight had to go off, unfortunately. But let's give some feedback. So I'm trying to figure out how to create a smart material for the ground in order to give it a mosaic texture. But with ornaments surrounding the base of the pillars, the walls, and the main furniture shown in the last screenshot. Yeah, what I would do there is very simply split it up into two different materials. So what you do is, one, you have your main tileable material. Which is going to be the core of this material, right? So like all this white, like repeating, like tileable stuff. Keep that as like a tileable material. And then have the trims, like all these like little trims, right? You would add that in there. And you would have that as like two separate textures. Forgot to say thank you so much, Tim. No worries, Giovanni. No worries. Luis is coming in. It will be interesting to if it makes light shine through the window, but also needs extra work in the foreground. Oh yeah, you're talking about the window on the left, right? Yeah. There's always options, right? It kind of depends on the timeline that you have, because you could do something really interesting with that and kind of make it as like a mini diorama almost, right? So that could be cool. But yeah, what you kind of want to do with this is, yeah, split it up into like multiple materials. So this can be a trim. This can also be a trim, right? So all of this stuff can just all be trims. And then you have like your main tileable material here, which is barely readable. And then this stuff is going to be trims. So that's a way to break it up. And then the way that you get like all these like curly, swirly kind of things is just by being very smart with your UVs and your topology. And that probably brings us to the next question, right? Because I kind of spoiled myself. But you want to know how to make it flexible? Don't worry about it. I know this sounds weird, but the time that you're going to spend in trying to come up with like a really flexible, really cool system that has like all these swirly, unique things, it is not worth it. Because think about the approach of like the Art Nouveau movement as well, right? It was all about unique flair. They didn't want repetition. So if you are going to come up with a system that is going to try to make it like repetitive, it's just going to be way too complex for the thing that you want to do. And by the time you're spending so much time making all the individual patterns anyway, that you might as well just build it into the space itself. Right? So for example, this, if you, by the time that you figure out how to make that into like a system that kind of adapts to like the stuff that you're adding onto it, you might as well just have a couple of sections that you model and then just reuse. That is probably the way that I would approach it though, is I would use your trims. I would model this as a section, right? So you would kind of have like this as a separate mesh, right? And then find a spot where it's easy to merge it into another section. So for example, if we look at this area here, I can kind of separate that little area, and then wherever I need to connect it to those two separate trims, I can do that manually. So honestly, no fancy systems. Just smart use with meshes. That's what you want to do. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Fancy systems are cool. Yeah, if you like them. I do love making fancy systems as well, but usually they get out of hand, and then it's no longer about the environment, it's more about the fancy system that you're building now, right? As you may or may not have been aware of. Luis, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, awesome work, guys. Exactly. Everyone's kicking ass over here. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Luis, as well. Thank you for popping in and joining us. And have a good night. Cool. Next up from Sorav, a question for Whip Wednesday. We're going to speed things up just a little bit because a little bit over time. This is the distance that I will be using to showcase the asset in ArtStation. My question is, I feel like I'm stuck and I don't know how to progress further with this asset from an overall perspective. That's not really a question, it's a statement, but let me see if I can help. Okay, so a couple of quick things here. The first thing that I would do is if you feel stuck with the asset itself, in your case, think about the presentation, right? So we're gonna make sure that we get some juices back into the creative tank, right? So if I'm thinking about presentation for this one, let's get some Quixel assets and build a really quick scene around it. Quick scene, and then also light that scene as well. That is just a really quick way at this stage to unblock yourself, because right now, yeah, of course it looks like you're stuck because we're just looking at something in like a pretty boring space. It's not stimulating for us, right? So we're gonna apply a hack here. We're gonna make it look nice and then get reinvested into making this prop look good. And what I mean by that is literally, we just add like a little box underneath, right? Maybe some like small props like next to it. And maybe we'll drape like a piece of cloth over it. Right, so there's a piece of cloth on the table. This is on it. Maybe someone is like repairing it. So they have like a freaking hammer next to it. Whatever, right? But if we then already see it in like a more thought out scene, that has the ability to like kickstart like our motivation again. So we're gonna try that, and then we'll see. Maybe have a look at, if you're stuck, usually what we can do here is have a look at your references. Have you hit your benchmark? That's really what we're asking, right? What I mean by that is we use our references to set ourselves like a visual target that we work towards, right? So having a look at your references and reminding yourself of like, hey, here's the goal, and I think I'm still off by this texture or whatever. Like, go back to it, maybe find some new references, you know? Let those references inspire you as well. But that's what I would do. So make it cool again, and then just dive back into how you can really push it with your references. Yeah. Yeah, and think about the presentation. That's going to help as well. It's typical make or break time, right? Like these moments where you're like, oh, I kind of don't know what to do. Like that's a moment to experiment with how we approach our work and like how we fight through those difficult tasks, right? Like if we don't know what to do, like how do you like self-regulate? How to find a way of doing back things, right? So yeah, you got this, Sorav. Keep pushing, make a little presentation, look at your references, and then you'll get back on track as well. Hey, Dennis! Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Let's see. Mr. G is just putting work out there without any questions or any kind of like feedback request. So we're gonna keep this super brief. Let's see. The edit is still in works. I'll make adjustments. Okay, so oh, wait, sorry. So this is the final video and the images before. Do these work for a final presentation? I mean, yeah, they do. What I'm still missing is like a stronger vignette. Sorry, I think I misread the questions there. So a stronger vignette, that's definitely going to help. The same thing can be applied to your thumbnail as well. So let's have a look. If we just grab this, we'll make a mask, or actually, how do I just do this again in here? I wonder, can I just do a vignette in here somehow? For no, It's been a while since I used. There it was. Oh no, did I miss it? Let me see. Where was I looking? Yes. No, where? Lens blur. Gaussian blur. I don't want to blur stuff though. Oh no. There's also a delay on YouTube, so dang it. It's gonna be a nice and. Oh, vignette. There we go. Oh, it takes a whole image, I think. Yeah, it's pretty rubbish, isn't it? Okay, whatever. Honestly, you get what I mean, right? Just a stronger vignette, because now everything kind of feels sort of the same sort of range of colors, and that can be applied to the thumbnail as well. So that would be probably the first step. Let's see. There's a lot of noise going on here. That usually, sometimes Unreal Engine will kind of screw up when you render an image, and it will kind of forget to do anti-aliasing or something like that. So that would be one thing to look into, because this is like very distracting, right? Hey, Mr. G, welcome, welcome. So yeah, stronger vignette. There's a lot of noise in this like secondary image. Stuff here is looking pretty cool. Yeah, do the same thing on your thumbnail as well. That's gonna help. I also feel that they might need like a little kick. Let me see. Yeah, okay, you do. Maybe not the best thing to try. Let's see. Because I would kind of push the exposure just a little bit higher. Obviously, you have more control over this, right? Because I'm introducing clipping now, so you can't see like the bottom from the top anymore. But it kind of feels to me that if we look at this image, it kind of feels like there's this gray haze over the entire thing. So just pushing the values just a little bit, that's going to be nice. Let's see. Maybe I can do it this way. We're just making it like a little bit more impactful, right? Again, the white in this image is like clipping a lot, so you have to be careful of that for sure. Yeah, we can definitely start applying that to your thumbnail as well. Because especially if you look at, this is a good test to do, right? Like have a look at your thumbnail in the row of ArtStation and see if it pops out. And what a lot of people will do, they'll make like an extra edit so that they can make their thumbnail like more catchy compared to the actual environment, right? So that would be a good thing to look into. Especially on your thumbnail. Cool. That's about it for my side, Mr. G. Best of luck on posting this. I'm looking forward to seeing it online. It's been a while since you worked on this. Some of this stuff is looking really nice and crisp, nicely catching the highlights as well. It is have a look at some of these like detailed screenshots and how you present them. Because it might be cool to do like a collage of them or something like that as like a final presentation. If you have a couple of these snippets, you know? I also wanted to know if there's a good way of getting a good MP4. That's honestly a question that would be great for troubleshooting, because I'm not sure. It's been a while. So afraid I can't help with that necessarily, but the community can for sure. Next up for today, last two for today actually. So, Mark, no, you forgot to ask a question. Happy to receive feedback if you see anything I've missed. Oh, sorry, I need to read first. Focusing on scale and breaking down the modular kit. So I guess we can just eat this guy. And then we're gonna have a look at the actual concept down here. Yeah, I think the majority of stuff is in here, right? I mean, to be honest, let's see if this works, right? Yeah, that is something that I would be very aware of, is with the materials and the colors that you're using, right? And this is a good exercise, right? Like just flipping between them. With the colors and the materials that you're using, you have to be very specific with how you use them. Otherwise, it's going to be distracting, right? So, and it even comes down to, oh, maybe I'll do this. It even comes down to what painting you use on the left. Because what is really cool about this is that you have this painting, but this painting is empty. What that does is like, oh, it's a nice detail, but I'm not going to linger there at all. However, you added detail to your painting. So because it is the most detailed thing in the environment, people are gonna wander into this painting, and they might not even leave it because they're like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool little painting. Like, what is that from? You know? Because the rest of the environment is honestly, it kind of feels, imagine that you're at a gallery, right? And they make the space itself feel really bland because they want the paintings or the images or the art to stand out more, right? That is basically what is happening here because the rest of the image is so boring. So we need to make the painting here more boring. If you want the same sort of like focal point going towards like the end here, right? And also think about like the materials that they're using as well, right? So that was the first thing. Number two was focusing on materials, right? This space, the thematic that you've chosen is going to thrive on materials. So making sure that they look really good and that you kind of are very aware of like how you're going to use the design. So for example, your space between the floor panels is wider than the ones that you have here, or they take like more of attention because you have a bevel on them. And it's small stuff like that that is gonna distract people from certain elements, right? So be very careful about like these minimalistic environments. They're oftentimes like the trickiest ones because there's so much attention to detail that you don't realize before you get into them, right? And then of course, like all the reflections are going to play a huge part as well. But yeah, I think overall, the only thing that I would say, I mean, is missing is just like the chairs and like some of the smaller frames, right? Like it's subtle space filler stuff. So it's subtle space filling assets that you're kind of missing. And that's gonna just elevate the room just a little bit as well by just having like a couple of chairs, a couple of additional things to look out for. Yeah. Let me see if there was anything else. Oh, next pass is to model the rest of the blockout assets. Again, I should read before I say stuff. So yeah, ignore that part of it, Mark. Ignore that part of it. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your work, Mark. Cool little start. Interesting looking concept. Curious to see how this is going to go. And then Kieran, last but not least. Let me read first. Been working on this violin for a little bit and finally putting it out there to get some feedback on. Here's a Pure F. Some designers picked to show details, roughness, base color. Okay, cool. What I would say in that case is next time, feel free to ask questions what I can help on, right? Because now it's just like, oh, here's everything. So just a reminder for yourself, ask questions for next time. That makes both of our lives like way easier. Let's see, let's dive into it. So I had a look at this before, and what you could look into is have specific dirt and specific wear and tear. So for example, the body of the violin is always easier to clean than the stuff underneath here, right? I had a guitar at some point. This stuff is always going to get the dirtiest because that's the hardest stuff to clean. And so having some dirt in those crevices, yeah, that is definitely going to be helpful. Roughness variation looks also pretty generic. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, there's nothing of interest going on, right? Nothing that really hints at like a story or what happened with the violin at some point. For example, if you have like a big scratch, I'm just saying something, that is hinting at like, ooh, this person dropped it at some point and have like a big scratch on the back of it. That sucks, you know? But that is giving more flavor to the asset that you're trying to display, right? And it can hint at something. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to dive into all of this. I should have grabbed like a bigger picture as well, but these screenshots look really nice. If you're doing like these up close screenshots, this stuff is really important, right? Making sure that your bake is like super clean and that you have like a smooth line there and that the normals are like perfect. If you're gonna do details, like that's the expectation that you're setting for yourself, right? So making sure that is clean, where you have like a nice smooth highlight that travels all the way down the body of the violin, that's gonna be helpful. Also, don't be afraid to add more geo as well. Because your bake and your geometry needs to be not perfect, but let's call it perfect, you know? Because if you're gonna do these detail shots, that's what you're putting attention to, right? And they're great, I think you should keep them, but that also means that you have to put in extra time and extra detail into those areas that just have like a little kink in them or can be improved just a little bit still, right? Clean looking topology, always love to see it. Yeah. Cool stuff. I'm really curious to see like the final presentation of this as well. But yeah, so number 2 was like more roughness variation, dirt, and like in specific areas as well. Like again, try to think about how this stuff is used, like how this prop is used. How is this used? How often is it cleaned? Like who owns it? Like you can get a lot of detail when it comes to the texturing of it. And then this is, what was it? Number 4. Making sure that like your geometry and your bake is in a good place, especially when doing detail shots. That is definitely going to be really nice to look into. But yeah, and then the presentation needs to elevate all of this too, right? So if you have more like unique roughness variation, if you have specific dirt and how this is used and all that kind of stuff, that's really going to help. Jonathan is saying, damn, the research and reference gathering is S tier. Yeah, let me have a closer look at it, right? Because we didn't really do it justice now. So we get that in here. But that is what you need, right? Like when you're making a prop like that, you kind of want to have like very specific angles, making sure that you can see everything. Let me actually download the image instead. Hello, where did you poop it out? Let's see. Oh, it's as big. Come on. Come on. Oh, well. Okay, I guess we're not really going to see that much on this then. But I bet that because you have like these angles are like really important, right? Because you can get like a lot of roughness information out of seeing like a light bounce off like a surface. So that's going to be really interesting to have a look at those detailed shots in closer detail and try to replicate what is happening there. But yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, Kieran. Great looking stuff. Yeah, the final push is always the hardest, but you've got like really solid stuff going for it. Be careful. Last thing that I'll bring up here is maximize UV space. Because I don't know how big your UVs are, right? I don't know where they stop or begin, because that's hard to tell. But let's say even if it's that, like there's a lot of wasted space over here that you can use more efficiently as well. Especially because you're going to show it off, right? Again, it needs to kind of be like the best that it can be, right? Not perfect, because that's endless chasing around, but yeah, make it really, really, really good. Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your work, Kieran. Really appreciate it. For the people that have participated, I will post the feedback and the link to this video and also the overpaint. I will post that into like your individual threads. If you want to participate next week again, make sure that you re-tag yourself up for Whip Wednesday, because otherwise you're not going to be featured next time. And yeah, that will be it for this week. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much for like the awesome conversation that we had in the beginning. If we have a lively chat like that next time, then I would kind of keep that as like a segment and just, yeah, talk about like industry stuff, have some questions. I think that was really, really cool. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to sign off now. Have a nice evening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.